Hello everyone, this is Deniz Beser, founder and the director of Fanzineist Vienna art book and zine fair. So today I would like to welcome you to live talk. In this evening, Christian Reister will be the guest artist for this talk. And now I would like to give a small introduction about him. Christian Reister is a photographer and self-publisher from Berlin, Germany. He mainly shoots personal work in the subjects of the street photography and the portrait, and he published his projects, often photographed over many years, in books and his own zine series Driftwood, 12 issues since 2006 that he published about Driftwood zine. In addition to his self-published art books, Berlin Knives was published in 2018 by the prestigious London publisher Hoxton Mini Press. Now, I'm gonna invite Christian to our live talk.
Hi there.
Hello, Christian.
Great
How are
to see you. Hi, Deniz. Can you hear me? I hear good.
Yeah, everything is
fine.
perfect. Hope you are
Wonderful.
well. So, anyway, if you want, we can just start our conversation with my question.
Yeah.
Or you can. I just try to share a small introduction about you, but of course, you can make it better than me. Would you like to tell yourself shortly?
Well, I think in a nutshell, you said everything that is important. I mean, I'm a photographer. I come from photography. I make artistic or photographic work since about 20 years and started publishing them as books about 10 years ago with self-publishing. I also made a book with a publisher from London, but my main intent and my main thing is to make small editions in the artist book way myself, which has the big advantage that you are very free to do what you like, and in the end it has to please yourself and not a publisher or something, you know. So if I work with other people, I choose them carefully, and then I appreciate to have great people on board, like Hoxton Mini Press, which was a great cooperation because they're so professional and so they have a great taste, you know. And but when it comes to my other work, it's more small publishing thing. Congratulations for the music that you have chosen. It was Einstürzende Neubauten or Blitzerwagen.
Yeah.
So very Berlin music.
I really love that. I'm the one of the fan of them.
Yes.
We can start from the very beginning of your own personal history, like from your childhood. How was your childhood? Did you have an interest in art back then?
Well, you know, I grew up in a very small town in southern Germany. It was all village style on the countryside, and my mother was an art teacher at school. So I think some influence, of course, come from that side. When I was a kid, I was very much interested in music, in pop music, and that led me to the bass guitar. And I was a bass guitarist for 10 years, about between 17 and 27. My main interest was music, and also in that time I was very much caring about the design and the graphic design, how the band looks, the image, all this visual side of music was always very important to me.
Yeah.
And but I quit music when I was 27. On the countryside or at southern Germany. Things got bored in a way, so I had to flee somewhere else, and this is was when I moved to Berlin in the mid-end 90s, I was 97. In the beginning, the intention was to find new musicians for musical projects, but then I quit that, and I somehow stumbled into web design, which is still my main profession today, what I earn my money with. But then after 1 or 2 years just working on a computer, I somewhere saw a camera and a film, and it was so analog and in contrast to my video, to my digital work every day. So this is how I got into photography. 20 years ago or something. And
Yeah.
so I think it's just, yeah, the creative output, it was, for a long time, it was music, then it was more the designing thing, and then now it's photography. Plus designing, plus a little bit of publishing. And that's the way.
Wow, you were and you are a quite active person in different scenes about music, graphic design, and photography, publishing.
Yes, maybe I'm not an expert at anything, but I know a lot of details in a lot of areas. And for me, it's always interesting to cross borders between media. You know, I don't know if you know that I also did some photo films with composed music on the photographs, and or live screenings or performance with bands with photography screening. I love working for musicians when it comes to record cover artwork or something. And this, so yes, and I also like working with other artists. I mean, if we have a group show with several artists, it can be boring when everybody is a photographer. But if you have to cope with other areas as well, a sculpture, a printer, or whatever, it makes things more interesting. It makes you look a little bit far outside, you know, not just always the same thing. And this is important to me to have these boundaries, to break them, or to, you know, most things that I photograph is Berlin, is street photography, is public life, it's normal people on the streets or in the clubs or whatever.
Also, being in a big city is bringing lots of opportunities, and you can make lots of interdisciplinary collaborations as you do. Yeah. So I think Berlin is the one of the right place to make that kind of collaborations.
Yes, I'm very sure that if I would have stayed in southern Germany in this village context, I would never would have come to photography or that thing, you know, because here's so much inspiration. There's so much other photographers and other artists. So if it comes to Germany, I think Berlin is the best place to be for me. So, I mean, I'm here now for longer than everywhere else that I've been. And I feel very at home here, even though it's sometimes, yeah, a love and hate relationship, you know, but still it's, yeah, Berlin is still great for me and great inspiration. And I didn't want, I could imagine to live in London or in New York for a couple of years or something. It would be possible. But in Germany, Berlin, yes.
I took a look at your CV and I saw that you started the photography in 2001. What were you doing in the previous periods? I know you were just working for graphic design and you were making music. Yeah, you can talk about it if you want. How did you start to work about photography?
Well, as I said, when I started photography, my main business was building websites. Programming websites, and photography was then a new area for me just to play around. So it wasn't important to have a good result or anything. It was just about putting a film into a plastic camera. And in the beginning, I had those Lomo cameras, which I still sometimes use. And I just walked the streets or whatever I saw, I photographed, and then I went to a drugstore to develop it and bring the next film, and it went more and more and more. But in the beginning, it was just about playing and being naive and not knowing much about it. And it took me a couple of years till I really got interested in the techniques. What is aperture? What is and so on? What is a focal length? And I just learned this by a workshop. And I had a good friend at the time, a photographer in advertisement, yeah. And so technically he could teach me anything that I wanted. And then I also started doing assignments because people asked me here and there for portrait jobs and stuff. And so it was just growing. It wasn't a master plan. It wasn't a quick thing. It was just growing and growing and growing. And all those fields that I felt interested in, that I was interested in, I would just go and try things out. You know, it can be the architecture photography, it can be portraits for companies, for corporate anything, but also for the press. And things I didn't like, I quit. And I don't take assignments for several fields because it's boring, but it's always good to try it out, you know. Also product photography or something in the studio which has to be lit perfectly. So there was a lot of playing around in the beginning, then a lot of trying out and practical thing. And on the other side, I think about 2005 or something, I started also doing exhibitions with my street photography. And at that time, I had a teacher, Andreas Rost, might be known in Germany for several work. And at this period, he was very important for me just to learn about the history of photography, about an artistic approach, not to just snap single fine images, but to tell stories and to go deeper into something. Take your time, take some years to work on projects and not just a couple of weeks, you know, not like going on a holiday for 2 weeks and say, hey, I've been to Mallorca.
Yeah. So
just go on your own, go out of your own door in your own city and work at it. So the work has the chance to develop. And see, from today, I think my first really interesting work was maybe 10 years ago. So I would say 10 years was practicing and trying out first things. And then I can take myself serious now for the other books and stuff and exhibitions that I made from that on.
Yeah, that's a great period, actually.
Yeah.
How was your relationship with first photography equipment that you bought?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I told you in the beginning, it was all about plastic toy cameras and stuff. And then when I tried to do it a little bit more serious, I bought my first SLR camera, but that was analog. It was a time when digital photography was not really taken serious, maybe 2002, 2003, something like that. And so in the beginning, all the basics I learned from the technique was still analog. Maybe it's a good lesson, I don't know, I can't compare it. But, and then later I bought a Nikon Coolpix camera. This was my first digital camera. A horrible piece seen from today because it was so thick and so, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, then when it came more professional, then I bought the ES5D, which was the first SLR full format camera taken by, used by semi-professional photographers. And this camera, or the one that followed, the 5D Mark IV now, this has always been my work animal, you know, my professional camera. I have all the flashes, I have all the focal lengths, I have all the techniques that I need for proper shots. But when I go out on the street, I have stuff like this. It's a Fuji, or I mean, what everybody uses. I love to have a fixed lens, not all this zooming. I love to have it very simple. And
yeah,
it's not about the camera, it's about how you are connected to the camera. You have to know your camera inside out, I think. And then it's all about the eye and what you see and what you want to tell and what you, I don't know.
Yeah, actually my next question is about technique and equipment. So there are some photographers who are constantly updating their equipments, and every year they spend enormously and buy extra equipments, and other photographers may make a different choice and add only small new equipment to their studio. So what type of photographer are you? Which one?
I'm the one who has a camera and uses this camera till it falls apart. And then it's broken. And then I have to find out what's on the market. What can I buy now? But if I have a camera I like, which like this Fuji, for instance, the one before this I lost in Vienna in a tram. It was a disaster. But then this was something, the camera, I used it for years and years, and then suddenly it was gone. And then I looked for the same camera, but the generation that was up to date at that time. Now I think there are 2 more generations, and I'm not interested in them because I'm fine with that camera. I also have a small Ricoh, because this small Ricoh is even smaller than the Fuji. I can put it in my pocket of the trousers in the summertime when you have small shorts, or when you go inside clubs or discotheques or something, when there is a possibility to go there, when there's no pandemic or something. Because this even smaller camera, of course, is not so, you can put it better aside. So for me, it's important to have a small camera and an easy camera to carry around with, and that's it. And if the camera is nice, I will
That's a great
take
solution.
it forever.
I know that you mostly create works of documentation about street photography and nightlife. So how is your relationship with studio photography, or do you have a working method like that about studio photography?
I also do studio photography, but it's a different pair of shoes, you know? I mean, my street photography and all this night photography, that's then later are published as books or something, they are just a result of my life, if you want to say it. I mean, I go out in the evening and I have a camera with me, and if I see something, I would take a picture. And I would collect and collect and collect, and someday I see, there's a red line between these 5 images. Maybe I can put some other images, and this is all the editing process. But nothing is planned beforehand. And this is another situation than in the studio, of course, because in the studio, it's always a decision. Okay, the backdrop is white or black or gray, and this lamp is here, and this flashlight is here. So you have to think before you take the picture. And depending on what you do, the studio is much better, of course, because you have so much more control. But on the other side, in street photography, it's not about having control. It's all about getting this single moment out of something that you could never stage up. So, but I really like portrait photography as well. If you look at my website, there are some series about Berliners, and for instance, where we have a kind of mobile studio. We go in public places with a big backdrop. I have an assistant with me, and there's a lot of taking care of everything and making proper images of people. But then it's all about the people and not about the area around them and not about busy life. It's just about people, and then studio is fine. And if you take the studio outside to strange people you don't know, then it's a kind of interesting pictures. Yeah,
I totally understand what you mean. Yes, street photography is bringing lots of improvisation, and also street photography means, for me, being in the right place in the right time. So somehow you need to know how to go there.
I have just found a little article, a blog post from a newspaper about me from Russia, and I translated it via Google Translate, and they said Christian Reister is a photographer who is always on the right time at the wrong place. And this is what I liked. This is what I liked, because a lot of my pictures have all these, those non-situations, you know, always at the wrong place. It's also a compliment, you know. At the right moment,
yeah, it is,
as long as you're at the right moment.
In a different way, it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm also very curious how you met with zines. And do you remember the first zine that you bought?
That I bought? Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really sure what was the first zine that I bought, but there's a guy called Sergei Vuchuk. I don't know if Vuchuk, Sergei Vuchuk. He lived in Berlin for a long time. I think at the moment he's in Paris, and he's from a skateboarding scene, and he also does a lot of scenes in very gritty black and white style. Very blurry images, and I think he was one of the trigger points to make my own zine. And there have been some other zine publishers as well from Portugal. And there's a Dutch Peter Oy, and The Unknown Books was a portal in the internet. They published some photography scenes that I really liked. And I think I just collected some, yes, and then I started doing my own or something. But what really was the first one, I don't know. I could tell you my first record,
Yeah,
but
it's
not my
okay.
first scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When did you start to produce your zine Driftwood? It was in 2016, right?
something like that. Yeah.
And how was your motivation? How was your motivation to start this zine?
Well, I was in 2011 or something. I started my black and white night photography. The 10 years
Oh,
previous,
yeah.
I did mainly color photography, and then I switched to black and white and to film and to analog. And after about 3 years or something, or 4, I think 3 years, I was thinking about making a book. And I was
Yeah.
making this book, Alle Katzen Grau, which you have on the Zine Festival as well, which is self-published,
Oh, yeah.
and it's it's a proper book, offset printed. Everything is very carefully thought, every detail made perfect for my what I wanted to have at the time. And when this book was ready and published and out, I found out that I have so many photographs left which didn't make it into this book, but it was still a strong series. And this seen from today, I know I have photographed this series ever since then, because over 10 years now, and I still do Berlin night photography. But at that time, I thought it was an end. And so the first scene was about taking the B-sides from the all Alle Katzen Grau and put it into something very easy, just to go to a copy store, a copy shop, and to make it very cheap and to make only 50 copies. And but then I also had this in mind, maybe it would be nice to have a series, because then I was planning a trip to America, and I thought, maybe you can make a little road movie scene out of this, and a couple of other topics. And the idea was just to publish work which is not so broad, which is not so complicated, which is much more easy to publish in this way. And this was the reason why I started Driftwood. And then in the beginning I said, okay, let's make a subscription thing. And I wrote on my website, you can buy 4 copies and you pay less, and pay now, and then you get the scenes. And then people bought it. And I had about 35 or something people who had bought all 4 copies all over the world. And well, then it was about, what do I do now? And this is how it's developed. In the beginning, it was every 3 months a new scene. But then I slowed it down a little bit. I mean, now I publish one when I just feel it's right. And it can take a year. It can take a couple of months. I don't know. I mean, now I'm at number 12, I think. Maybe I'm taking a break till number 13. But it can also, maybe tomorrow I see something, have an idea. I was just looking at some New York pictures I took a couple of years ago, and I was so fascinated how much great pictures are there. Maybe this can be a scene. Maybe not. So
Yeah, why not? It's really great to print some timeless publication. I mean, for example, when you start to work in some certain periods, like in every 3 months, I should print this scene. In every month, I need to print this kind of publication. It's gonna be a hard challenge somehow. So that's why the method that you work on it is better.
Also a good playground, you know, when I did this self-published Alle Katzen Grau book, and then a couple of the Driftwood scenes, then I met the people from Hoxton Mini Press who wanted to make a broader book about Berlin nightlife pictures. And then I could reuse, of course, all those images again, because the limited editions of the first Driftwoods are sold out anyway. And so I had a big collection to choose from. And but when we did the Berlin Nights book, I think half of the pictures was new at the time, and the other half was the best of the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, which of course it made it very convenient to bring a real strong story together for this book. So this aspect of practicing working with your image is always important. Also important if you do an exhibition and you have published them before, you have a stronger connection to your own work and you are much more in it.
I agree with you. You are right. By the way, the Driftwood magazines are strictly limited to 50 each. So do you plan to offer more copies in the future, or will you always print the zines in 50 copies?
It all depends. I think the last two I did 60 because I had the feeling that maybe I should make some more so that they don't sell out so fast. But on the other side, I think I wouldn't do 100 or 200. If I want to do 100 or 200, then I find another format for it. And I've just done a publication with a friend of mine, Christoph Schieder, also a Berlin photographer, and we have been out on the streets on the last lockdown winter a lot of joint walks all through the cities. When everything was cold, there was no bar. We all had to buy our beer at the Späti, late shop, and we were just walking streets, taking tons of pictures. And this was also a project. When we did this for a couple of times, then we thought, let's take a look at our pictures, and we saw it works. In the beginning, we thought it was just about talking and drinking beer or something, but then we saw that because we both have a different approach. He was just photographing with a cell phone because his camera was broken, and he did color photography, and I was working in my regular style, as you know it, as a Driftwood style.
Yeah.
And these pictures we put together now in another publication, which is a kind of a maxi zine because it's very big. It's 4 times the size of a Driftwood. You know, so this is a Driftwood zine, and
yeah, wow, it's quite huge. Now I can see the difference.
It's big. And it's expensive to ship across the world, but that's a problem. Yeah, and this is just my photo. I can't show it on the tab. And these thing with different papers here. The color photos are all printed very on a paper with some, how do you say it, lack in German.
Yeah.
So this, what's shivering here. So, and this is another kind of paper. This is more, Munken paper. And yeah, I mean, this is just an example of another publication that just happened. It would fit to the Driftwood format because it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, at least it's a duo work now. And yeah, but next time maybe it's another Driftwood again or something else. We will see. We will climb that bridge when we come to it. Yeah.
Sure. It's really good, by the way. I hope one day I can see your publication physically in an art book fair or in somewhere else, or in Berlin or Vienna.
I have some friends in Vienna, and I mean, if I go to Vienna next time, maybe we can meet or something. It would be a pleasure. Course,
yeah, sure. Hope whenever you come to Vienna, please just let me know.
There's also Vienna Driftwood. One about my.
I have seen.
It's sold out. It's one of the earlier copies.
Oh,
but
cool.
this is also this resulted in I don't know. It was 5 or 6 visits to Vienna over 10 years or something, and then I cropped out maybe 30 pictures or 20, I don't know, to make a scene. Yeah. So I'm very critical in what pictures I choose and what not. And
yeah. So I have another question. Before, actually, you were explaining about your distribution sources, but how do you distribute your zines? Do you spread your zines to some zine distros or zine stores or some art book stores who interest about zines? Because as I know, many zine stores in Berlin, and there is really great spots like that. So I'm really wondering about your distribution sources.
In the beginning, it was mainly this subscription thing, because when you have 50 copies and 35 people, 35 are already sold, there's no use to bring it to a local bookstore or to a zine store. but I went to some book festivals and stuff, and to have my own table with books and with those scenes as well. It's been an art book fair in Sofia. Has been a couple of festivals in Berlin, always changing names, where you just can have a table and meet a lot of people, and sometimes people buy a scene, but it's more about connecting and networking all the time. I think those festivals, like we talk now, so it's offline festival, but it's also yes. So there's no great distribution idea, but there's one store in Berlin which is called Super Life Kiosks. They mainly do screen print, illustrations, and not so much photography, but they do have my scenes. And those of Sergei Mutuk.
Oh, cool.
And
Wow.
they sell this is the only store where you can always find the latest Driftwood scene. So because I like that store very much, they like my work, and so I would always bring them to them. And then the books, of course, they are also in bookstores, but not the scenes. The scenes is more like independent, you know.
Yeah, right. So you have your own web shop.
Yes,
and
of
you are
course.
selling your publication from there.
And this is working quite fine. Yes. I think what I do is not mainstream at all, and there's very raw people who are interested in this kind of photography, but the people are all over the world, and if you can reach to the right people, it can work that you can sell out a scene in a couple of weeks with 50 copies. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's still. Yeah, I like it.
It's lots of meaning.
Okay.
Also, you use different mediums like installations, photo films, live projections. How do you combine that mediums with your photography?
Well, it always depends on the location and the event. You know, I sometimes get invited by festivals from anywhere in the world and it wouldn't. If I would show my printed images in big frames, I would have to take care about bringing to that country, going to the country myself, and so on. And in these cases, I would always prefer to screen a film, because this film is here anyway. And if there is no budget for images, I can bring a film, which, if it is presented in a good format, of course, can also reach people. And so it always depends. If I have great rooms where I can work with classical fine art prints, I would do this. And if it's a shabby room, I would just paste them on the wall. So it all depends. I think every event and every exhibition has its own atmosphere, and there's nothing more boring than just bringing the same pictures to every place. This doesn't make sense. It's boring. It's much more interesting to deal with the place you are and to find a proper way to show your work that it's just more than the pictures, you know. Also, when I do a scene, it's not about the pictures. It's the pictures tell a story in a scene. It's a scene. If I do a book, it's a book. And if I do an exhibition, then it's not about the same pictures again, but about a combination of different pictures and how they are presented in this kind of area.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, you create some site-specific installations, and as you said, spaces are given so much tips, so depends on the space. Also, you are just combine your installation or that projection or other kind of works. So I totally understand what you mean. By the way, I just want to make a small reminder for our followers. If you have any questions to Christian Reister, so please write your questions in that comment section. We are just waiting for your questions.
All right.
And I'm just keep going on to my questions. Well, what's your future plans? Do you have any exhibitions or new zine or art book fairs that you will be attending soon? I know recently you opened a solo exhibition,
Yeah,
right?
it's a duo exhibition. It's about this one, no? This duo
Oh,
publication
yeah.
that I did with Christoph Schieder. And there's an exhibition at a gallery in Berlin, which closes next Sunday. So then this is over. Actually, I don't have a lot of plans. There's an art book fair in Berlin in November in Kreuzberg. I'm going to be there
Cool.
with a table. And
What's the name of it?
artbook.berlin, I think, is the
Ah, yeah, I
yeah.
know that one.
I
Yeah.
think they are not so much
Cool.
a scene audience. It's more about
Yeah, I know.
classical art and also older generation of people, but also young and screen printing style and all these things. So again, not just a photography thing, but something where you can meet other directions as well. So, but as you asked for an art fair, I think this is the only art fair that I'm going to attend this year. And exhibition, not a lot planned at the time. I just have the feeling that the work with my Berlin night photography is now a solid body of work. And if there's an opportunity to take part with it, I will do it. But I'm not constantly looking for it. And now at the COVID-19 times, I mean, there was nothing to plan. And I really enjoyed it in a way to plan nothing, you know, because it's also, I also think that it was a great chance to slow down and to concentrate more about the content. No? And now and later we will all go out again and we all will be playing our loud drums. But for this time, I enjoy to have it a little bit more dimmed down. And we will see. I'm sure there will be some festivals and there will be solo exhibitions. There will be all of that, but not now. I don't know now. We will see.
Yeah. But somehow we really miss that physical events, physical art book fairs,
Of
zine
course, of course. I mean,
festivals,
it would
concerts.
be such a pleasure to be in Vienna now, sitting on a table, having a drink and meeting a
Yeah.
lot of people. And not just seeing names here popping in who is visiting, you know, but see faces. This is, of course, I miss that too. But for a certain time, it was also nice that you didn't miss anything, you know. You were not always about you have to be here, you have to be there. Ah, have you seen this? Have you seen that? No, I've just seen my sofa, and this is nice, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
Or I take a look at my books or whatever, listen to my records. Or...
Also, you have lots of vinyl, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I love vinyl.
I had
Of
a shelf with my records and a shelf with my photo books, and at one time I realized it's all the same. I have to mix it.
Yeah, it seems like a great treasure.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm an old man, you know. It's been it's just my youth was in the 80s, so there's a lot of 80s pops that nobody wants to hear today, but maybe again.
I like 80s pop, by the way. Please. Yeah. There are some people who loves 80s pop, 80s disco, yeah. So that's fine.
Yeah. And Einstürzen in Neubauten as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. Anyway, if you want, let's talk about your inspiration sources. What are you inspired by? Which podcast do you listen? Which movies do you watch? And of course, what kind of music do you listen? Actually, you said before you were listening lots of pop music, and maybe nowadays you just listen different type of musics.
Well, if it comes to inspiration in general, I would think it's a great mixture of everything. As I said, music is still important to me, and I try to also find out some new bands and not just listen to all the stuff from the 80s or something. And from time to time, but I think it's very mixed. I couldn't say that there's a special genre that I listen more, but maybe, what can I say? Bands like Elbow, or they exist since a long time. But this is a band that I discovered just a year ago through an artist friend. So music can of course influence a lot. And when I sit in my studio to edit pictures, it's always important what you hear to this, yeah. And Eichstätte Neubauten, for instance, they are always good. I read a lot of photo books, of course, but also other kinds of art books. In the last 1 or 2 years, I got deeper involved with screen printing, which and I do a lot of screen printing myself now, interpreting my own photography in screen printing, which is an interesting way to deal with your pictures, because of course it's absolutely different to a photographic print, because you have to reduce it and to have this, how do you say it in English, these dots. Yeah, and on also working with colors in this way. I mean, I take black and white photographs, but I print them in bright colors and experiment a lot. So sometimes it's also a new media again, you know. So sometimes I just take those walks around, and then I come back to photography, and maybe I choose different photos now with the back of my mind to, maybe I can do a script or something. You know, everything is always influencing. Street, and there's a new shop selling something, and you take a look, then you have a new influence. And it's the great thing about urban life, that it's always so much influence that sometimes it's more a problem not to look at everything and not to be overwhelmed by how much great art there's around you, because then you can feel so small. Sometimes it's better to have a break and
Inspirations are everywhere, but it depends on how you look, how you catch. So it's really important, our perspective, to catch that kind of right inspiration sources, I guess.
Yes, and to be interested and open-minded, and to know what you are interested in, because you can't take everything. 3 photo books. Oh, this is always. Who are your favorite children? But you mean photo books from other artists, I think.
Yeah. It's
well,
a hard
I
question.
would always say, even if everybody's saying this, but that Robert Frank and the American is obviously a milestone, and for me also a big influence. And then I wouldn't point out other books, but artists who did great books. I mean, William Klein did so great photography books, because he was is also a graphic designer and a painter. So his books are always great. Tairu Moyama is a big inspiration for me, because he does such a big amount of books, and he tries out such a lot of different materials and things. People tend to say he's publishing every picture he does, but I think it is very clever chosen what he does, and I like it a lot. Gary Winogrand was a big influence, but not so much in books, because the books were made by other people. But but to talk about favorite books, I often take a look at the Winogrand books over and over again. And there are lots of great books. I mean, I could talk half an hour about. There are some German photographers as well, which you might not know everywhere. Gundula Schulze-Endovi is a complicated name. He's a photographer
it is.
From the former GDR, and she has one book called Berlin in a Dog's Night, Berlin in einer Hundenacht, which is very intense. And Harald Hauswald is great, also another German photographer, and so on, and so on. There's another question here. I want to ask a question about.
Yeah, another question.
My first camera. My first camera was actually a plastic camera from the Lomographic Society, Action Sampler, which is a toy camera, a very cheap thing to play around with. And my first proper camera was a Canon SLR analog at the time. How did you feel for the first time you were using this? I felt great, I think. What did you discover for yourself? By photography in general, I mean, it's not the camera, it's the results that you get. And I think at the time, as I also said, for me, it was just important to try out new media and to try out a new art form and to find out that I can, in a way, freeze moments, but tell completely new stories for the future. Maybe
Yeah.
something like that. What is this? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I have one more
Okay.
question. As I see, Photobook scene is just growing up, and year by year there is gonna be more Photobook events. Yeah, it's one of bigger scene than before, I guess,
I'm
right?
not sure. I would say that the peak of the photo book is already over a little bit. I have the feeling that in the beginning there was a photo festival in Kassel, which was very famous in Germany, and you had 2 or 3 other big festivals around the globe, and everybody was there, and this was really where things were happening. And now that nearly every country has a photo book festival, it gets a little bit. Of course, not everybody can go to every festival, and so every festival is a little bit complaining about losing audience, so that it's not so crowded and not so much so successful as it used to be.
It's really interesting to hear.
I thought you are in Vienna, and there's this Vienna Photo Book Festival as well, and I think I've been there a couple of times, but every year it's like it used to be a little bit more, and we don't know if we make it next year. I don't know, maybe some festivals have to go, that the other festivals are more interesting again. I don't know. But I mean, on the other side, it's great that there are so many festivals, and it's always, we will see. I don't know.
Anyway, we have only 30 seconds left. So slowly, we just close our live broadcast. So thank you very much for taking your time for this talk, Christian. So it was really nice to see you. I hope we can meet.
My pleasure. I hope so too.
In person
when
too.
I come to Vienna, I will call you or drop you a line.
Please. Please. Also, when I come to Berlin, I will be calling you.
I can show you some stores to buy photo books.
Great.
Of course.
Great. Perfect. Thank you very much. Dankeschön, Christian.
All right. Good night.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye.